The corridor of the Elysium station was silent except for the low hum of the life support systems. I had walked it hundreds of times, but today, every step felt like a countdown. I was headed toward the quarantine wing, where she was kept. Alara, the alien woman whose arrival had shaken the entire station. Her species, the Valari, were notorious for their unpredictability, their physiology unlike anything human science had catalogued. I'd been assigned as the liaison between her and the human crew, a role I had never sought but couldn't escape. No one else volunteered. Not after the first incident, when her tentacle-like appendages had destroyed a containment chamber during a panic episode. When I arrived, the door hissed open, revealing the sterile room that smelled faintly of antiseptic and ozone. Alara was sitting on a reinforced platform that doubled as her bed. Her translucent skin shimmered under the cold fluorescent lights, casting colors that shifted with her mood. Right now, it was a pale blue, sadness or fear, I couldn't tell. "You're here," she said, her voice a mixture of musical tones and vibrating hums that I had learned to interpret over the weeks. I was waiting. I swallowed hard. "You'll be okay," I said. The words felt almost foolish, even to me. How could I assure someone who had survived a crash on an uncharted planet, only to be captured and studied like a lab specimen, that she'd be okay? Her eyes, large, luminescent, and entirely alien, fixed on mine. And then she did something no one had expected. She laughed. Not the melodic, controlled sound I had heard before, but a deep, almost guttural chuckle that shook the room. The laughter startled me. I had been preparing for fear, for anger, maybe even despair. But laughter? That was foreign. "You think words can fix this?" she said, her tone laced with curiosity and incredulity. "You humans are foolish." I shifted uncomfortably. Maybe. Or maybe words are all we have. Her eyes softened slightly. The shimmer in her skin moved from pale blue to a gentle green, a sign of calmness, or maybe amusement. "All we have," she repeated, almost whispering to herself. Then she did something else. She reached out her hand, the tip of one appendage brushing mine. The contact sent a jolt through me. Not painful, but electric in the way it connected thought to thought. I felt her fear, yes, but also her memory of the crash, of isolation, of the endless void between stars. And alongside that, there was something else, trust. Tentative, fragile trust. "I told you," I said softly. "You'll be okay." She paused, drawing a slow, shivering breath. Then, in a voice I would never forget, she whispered, "You are human, and yet you see me." Her reaction shocked everyone when we later transmitted the interaction to the command deck. The footage showed a Valari who had been hostile, uncooperative, even dangerous, now responding with gratitude, or perhaps wonder. The station's officers were baffled. One senior scientist, Dr. Lenora Kays, muttered during the playback, "This isn't possible. Valari don't express emotions like that. It's dangerous, unpredictable." I ignored her warning. There was no danger in this moment, only understanding. The weeks that followed were a test of patience and of courage. Alara remained under quarantine, though her behavior changed. She stopped lashing out, stopped trying to escape. Instead, she spent hours studying the humans around her, mimicking our actions in subtle ways, learning our language, not just to communicate, but to connect. I became her constant companion. Not a guard, not a scientist, simply a human willing to be seen as she was. Our conversations were long and strange, a mixture of words, hand signals, and vibrations that I gradually learned to interpret. She told me about Valari history, their solar wanderings, their rituals of survival, and their philosophy of existence. Humans had always seen them as alien in every way, yet in her stories, I found echoes of our own desires, fears, and loneliness. One evening, as the station orbited a crimson gas giant, she spoke of something I hadn't expected. "When I crashed," she said, eyes reflecting the swirling storm outside, "I thought I was the last of my kind, that the stars had abandoned me." I placed my hand over hers. "You're not alone anymore." Her skin flickered with colors I couldn't name: violets, indigos, flashes of gold. She leaned closer, her voice trembling in a way that mirrored human fragility. "And will you stay?" "I will," I said. "As long as you need me." The next morning, the station sensors picked up a rogue asteroid cluster approaching at an impossible trajectory. Alara was terrified. The Valari instinct was to flee into the void, but the station had no ejection protocols capable of matching her speed. Panic could have triggered a violent response, a catastrophic energy discharge. I met her in the quarantine room, where she was already bracing herself against the transparent wall that separated her from the observation deck. "You'll be okay," I said again. The words felt heavier now, as if they carried the weight of stars themselves. Her reaction stunned me. She didn't laugh this time, didn't shake her head in disbelief. Instead, she closed her eyes, drew in a deep breath, and slowly exhaled. The shimmering of her skin formed a steady, pulsing rhythm. She was trusting me to be human when the universe was threatening to be anything but. When the asteroid swarm struck, the station rocked violently. Alarms blared. Crew members ran in every direction, scrambling to stabilize the outer shields. But Alara remained calm, anchored by something invisible, faith in a human she barely understood. Afterward, the command deck reviewed the logs. Dr. K's, ever skeptical, shook her head. "I don't understand it. She should have panicked, attacked, or something. But she just remained still." I smiled quietly. She trusted that I'd keep my word. The days after the asteroid incident brought a fragile peace. The station repaired its systems, and Alara began to venture beyond her quarantine for brief, supervised excursions. Each time, I accompanied her, watching as her confidence grew. She learned human humor, our games of chance, even our peculiar fascination with music. Her laughter, once rare and unpredictable, became a fixture on the station, echoing through the corridors like a strange and beautiful instrument. But there was still a question that haunted everyone: why me? Why had the Valari chosen to trust one human in particular, in a species that had historically feared or exploited hers? One night in the observation lounge, I asked her, "Why me?" She looked out at the stars, her hand brushing against the glass. "Because you didn't see me as a threat. You saw me as something to be protected. And in your eyes, I found what I had been searching for all my life." Her words hit me harder than any asteroid could. Not because they were romantic, though part of me felt that twinge, but because they carried a truth I had never fully grasped. Compassion, trust, and courage. These were not just human traits. They were universal. And in that moment, I realized that the lines drawn between species were far thinner than anyone dared imagine. Weeks later, Alara made a request that would shock the entire station. She asked to address the human crew directly, not through translation devices or intermediaries, but in her own way. The command deck agreed, albeit hesitantly. We gathered in the central auditorium, every officer and scientist present, tense with anticipation. Alara stepped forward. Her form was elegant, radiant, and unlike anything anyone had expected. She raised one appendage in what humans might call a salute. "You have kept your word," she said, her voice vibrating through the room in tones both alien and comprehensible. In a universe of chaos and indifference, one human saw me, not as an object, not as a threat, but as a being capable of hope. For that, I thank you all. And I thank him. All eyes turned toward me. My heart pounded. I was not accustomed to praise, certainly not on this scale. But before I could respond, she did something no one predicted. She smiled, a Volari smile, radiant and unfathomable, and then she laughed. Not at me, not at the humans, but at the absurdity of fear itself. I told her she'd be okay. I murmured to myself, watching as the crew slowly began to understand. Not all fear could be eliminated by words, nor all danger mitigated by action. But sometimes, a simple promise could change everything. And Alara, the alien woman who had shocked everyone, who had defied expectation and rewritten the rules of trust, had proven it. In the weeks that followed, she became more than just a curiosity. She was a member of the station, a bridge between worlds, a living reminder that understanding could exist where suspicion and fear had ruled for centuries. When the Elysium station finally charted a course for the uncharted sectors beyond human space, she asked me to come with her. Not as a translator or a guide, but simply as a companion. You'll be okay, I said again, as we prepared to leave the station behind. Her eyes glimmered, reflecting the stars. And this time, her laughter was full, joyous, unrestrained. Yes, she said, because of you. And as the station faded behind us, I realized something profound. Perhaps it was not just she who had been saved, but all of us, by a single human, and the courage to simply say the words that mattered most. As the Elysium station receded into the distance, Alara and I floated in the observation module, staring out at the endless stars. Space stretched before us like an ocean of possibility, infinite and uncharted. For a moment, there was silence, comfortable, almost sacred. You know, she said, her voice a soft hum that resonated in the module, I feared humans. All of my species feared humans. But you're different. I smiled, brushing a hand over the console. I'm not special. I just chose to care. Her translucent skin flickered, a cascade of colors that pulsed with emotion. That is what makes you extraordinary. In a universe filled with apathy and fear, one act of understanding can change everything. We drifted through the void together, our hands, mine human, hers alien, brushing as we adjusted to zero gravity. In that simple contact, I felt the full spectrum of her life. The loneliness of drifting planets, the weight of survival, and finally, the fragile hope that had taken root now, growing stronger with each shared moment. Then, she did something completely unexpected. She began to sing, or at least it sounded like singing through her alien tones. It was not words, but emotion made audible, a melody that wove through the silence of space, soft but powerful. I realized that this was her way of saying thank you, of expressing trust, gratitude, and connection in a language far beyond human understanding. Tears welled in my eyes, though I couldn't tell if they were mine or mirrored from her. Perhaps it didn't matter. What mattered was that we had found something rare, a bridge across worlds, across species, across fear itself. As the days turned into weeks, the bond between us strengthened. She began to explore new planets with me, observing alien ecosystems with curiosity and wonder. The crew of Elysium slowly accepted her as a member, no longer a dangerous anomaly, but a partner, a teacher, and a friend. One evening, as we orbited a blue-green exoplanet teeming with storms, I asked her again the question I had been afraid to ask. Do you ever think about going back to your people? Her gaze softened, distant yet alive. I think about them, but I've learned something vital. The universe is larger than fear, larger than survival. I found family here, not by blood, but by trust, by kindness, by the choice to see another being as worthy. I nodded, feeling the truth of her words deep in my chest. Then we keep moving forward. Together. She reached for my hand once more, a touch that sent warmth through both of us despite the cold vacuum outside. Together, she echoed. And in that moment, everything else, the fear, the isolation, the endless unknown, mattered less. Because sometimes, in the darkest reaches of space, a single promise, a single act of courage, and a single word, "You'll be okay," could resonate across galaxies, transforming lives in ways no one could anticipate. As the stars stretched ahead, endless and bright, I realized the truth that had guided every step of our journey. The universe might be cold, vast, and indifferent, but trust and compassion were forces that could light even the darkest corners. Alara laughed softly, a sound that would haunt my memory in the best way for the rest of my life. "I was wrong about humans," she said. "You are capable of miracles, in your own fragile way. And you," I replied, "have taught me that the impossible is only impossible until someone chooses to believe in it." She leaned close, resting her head near my shoulder in a gesture that was human in sentiment, yet alien in form. "Then promise me one last thing," she whispered. "Anything." "Keep believing," she said. "Even when the stars seem empty, even when fear feels stronger than hope. Promise me, human." I smiled, taking her hand in both of mine. "I promise." And as Elysium sailed onward into the uncharted void, carrying both of us toward adventures we couldn't yet imagine, I understood something fundamental. The universe might challenge us, frighten us, even break us, but the simplest acts of care, the smallest words of reassurance, could echo across time and space, shaping destinies in ways no one had ever dreamed. Alara's reaction had shocked everyone, but in truth, it had only revealed what I had always known. Connection, true, unyielding, empathetic connection, was the most powerful force in the cosmos. And together, we would carry it forward, wherever the stars might lead.